Oscillating generator is on. It's coast to coast. This is the most, shore to shore, and a whole lot more. Welcome to Monday Night Nerd. I am Myers Corp Creations. I am so glad you guys could be here tonight. It is March 13th in the year 2013, and tonight it is 90s music night here on the old video show. Tonight we're going to be talking in the news portion. We're going to be talking about Toronto Comic Con coming up next weekend. We're going to be talking about Mario Day from a few days ago. We're going to be talking about the amazing show that was the Oscars last night. We have a couple thanks for the memories, and in the main event, we are going to be talking about 90s music and all of the great things that were the 90s. I mean, I'm a 90s kid. I was born in the 80s, so I had a couple years in the 80s, but I'm mostly a 90s kid, and it was an amazing time for music, so we're going to be hitting that. And of course, we got the 3 Q&As at the end. So thank you all for joining tonight. If it looks a little different from the last podcast than the last video, we're trying a couple things different. I moved a couple monitors. We turned some lights off because we got some daylight savings happening now, so it's not as dark as it was before. So let me know if you see anything that looks a little weird, sounds a little weird. We'll make it work on the next one. We'll cut it in post, as they always say. But first, we're going to jump into some news. Let's talk about, you know what? Let's start with the Oscars. I think that is the hot topic with every single person today and probably will be for the next little while. The Oscars, I think, was everything everybody wanted last night. I'm a movie fan, and I have watched so many movies over the years, and I have not given a crap about the Oscars for probably 5-10 years. Haven't cared in the least. However, going into last night, you had every movie that was good got nominated. You had Tom Cruise in Top Gun. You had Brendan Fraser in The Whale. You had Everything Everywhere All the Time get with almost every nomination. You had Austin Butler for Elvis. I'd actually seen almost every big movie that was up for an award, which was shocking to me. And going into it, I think a lot of people had 2 big things they wanted to see. They wanted to see Ke Kwan get Best Supporting Actor, and we wanted to see Brendan Fraser win Best Actor. And to say that, spoilers, they did, to say that they deserved that after a career of being shunned and spit on and pushed down by Hollywood and not given roles, that was incredible. That was absolutely incredible to see them jump on stage and just take in that moment like they should. And then you also had Michelle Yeoh winning Best Actress, and you had Jamie Lee Curtis winning Best Supporting Actress, which, as Myers Corp Creations and such a Halloween fan, it was incredible to see someone like her who had such a long history in the movie industry in very much genre films, which she even mentions in her acceptance speech. Having her go up on stage and represent all of the horror fans, and having Michelle Yeoh go up, who, started in Jackie Chan movies and moved up to the Crouching Tiger movie, and it was incredible to have so many genre people on stage winning big awards, and it was for movies that people actually cared about. It wasn't for, I love The Fableman, but Hollywood has this thing about loving itself so much that those are the ones that win. And there was a good chance that Austin Butler was going to win Best Actor, because I think it was the last 7 of 10 for Best Actor was someone playing a real person. So there was some worry that Brendan might not win, but all of them won. The moment of Ke Kwan running on stage and getting the award, and then running up again because Everything Everywhere All the Time won Best Picture, and having Harrison Ford be the person who is holding that trophy for him, and seeing the love in his eyes, and it was beautiful. I think everyone enjoyed it, and I think that was the best thing for the Oscars. Again, I think I said on the last podcast, it is independently voted. There's supposed to be no sway. I don't know, not a part of it, but that's what the Oscars needed, especially from an audience point of view, because the audience needed a reason to watch, and they needed a reason to fall in love with that show and see great actors that they love getting the awards they deserved. And I think this will push the Oscars next year and make a lot more people watch who may not have cared, if some random picture won this year for all the awards. And so overall, it was an amazing show. I unfortunately didn't get to watch it because I don't have cable, but from the clips I've seen, it looks like the entire show is great. So good job, Oscars. And I think he got some. I think he might have some more audience next year because I think he got some people back in love with that show. Now, let's jump over the next day. Let's talk about Mario Day. For those who don't know, and I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that there was a lot of people at my work who were unaware because I was the only one celebrating. Mario Day was March 10th, and for those who don't understand why Mario Day is March 10th, MAR10 Mario. I think Nintendo came up with that about a decade ago, and they just celebrate usually by putting things on sale. If anyone is a Nintendo fan, you know that their games are usually not ever on sale for first party titles. So you usually get some stuff on sale. They usually announce one or two things. Um, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. They put out a new Switch bundle, I believe, and you got a choice of 1 to 3 games to download, which was really cool. They announced a new Lego set, which the Mario Lego set is doing pretty well from what I've seen. When it comes to reputation online, I'm not a big fan of it just because the minifigure characters aren't actual minifigures; they're like interactive game toys. So it's not for me, but from what I've seen, a lot of people like it and a lot of kids like it, which is, I believe, their main reason for being around. So good for them for putting out a new set. I believe I think it's a Bowser's Castle set, which they haven't done yet. So good on them. And I posted a whole bunch of social media stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The whole reason for that whole campaign was I really want to go to that Super Mario movie premiere in Toronto. I don't know if they're doing a premiere. They do a premiere for everything else. I know it's not a Marvel one, and anybody that I know that is going to these premieres is usually for the Marvel and DC stuff. So I would love to go to the Mario one in Toronto if they have it. Anybody, let them know because I'm a big fan and I cosplay as Mario and Luigi. So yeah, but that was it was a fun day. I was gonna dress up and go to work, but unfortunately, because of the snowstorm, I kind of put a pause on that and just wore the hat and the boots. So it was a good day, and I don't think anybody was really expecting a lot from the Mario Day from Nintendo, except I know the Lego set was leaked by not leaked, but it was previewed by the Lego company. So but I don't think anybody was really thinking anything. I think they were just gonna celebrate it. So it was cool seeing the Switch bundle, and I think they dropped the trailer. I think they dropped the final trailer that day, or is the day after, which looks really good too. I think that movie's gonna do amazing. So overall, great Mario Day. Last bit of news for the day. This might be a shorter episode. I think we're only like 8 minutes in, and I'm running through this. We're running through this news. Um, Toronto Comic Con is this weekend at the Metro Toronto Convention Center. I will be there. I will be there on the Saturday. Um, it's I I don't think I've been to a Toronto Comic Con in a couple years. Usually because I'm usually getting ready for Anime North, getting Fan Expo stuff ready. Um, because I usually get a premium pass for Fan Expo, that gives you access to the Sunday of Toronto Comic Con the next year for free. Um, However, the Geeks and Co. gentlemen and ladies will be there, and they will be doing a couple special days. I believe the first day is Star Trek Day. I believe the second day is Marvel Day, and the third day is a DC meetup. I believe they're there with their Predators on the Marvel Day, which will be really cool, seeing a bunch of Marvel characters and Predators in photos together. So I will be stopping by on the Saturday. I picked myself up a Saturday ticket before they sold out, unfortunately. So if you are interested in going, they are unfortunately sold out of the Saturday passes. So you'd have to get a full weekend pass if you'd like to go. But I figured this would be an appropriate time to kind of show off what I've been working on. I've kind of kept it under wraps. I did a little bit of a preview when I first started, but except for my wife and I think maybe 2 other people, no one's really seen what I've kind of worked on. Worked on. I was trying to think of a funny word to say it, but there really isn't. For those who don't know, I will be Ghost Rider that weekend, which I've always loved the Ghost Rider character, and I will be wearing this bad boy on my head, which is pretty close to done. I mean, I think it might need a little bit of work. Let's see if we can do the old boom. There we go. That looks not bad on camera. I gotta admit, it turned out pretty good. I got a little bit of work to go with that, but yeah, that will be my Saturday. I will be walking around the con floor, probably by the Geeks and Co booth, because I know they are doing a meetup. Don't fall. But yeah, I will be rocking that thing. So if you see me, I'll have my big leather jacket on and the rest of the armor. If you see me, come by, say hi, tap me on the shoulder, tap me on the arm. I probably won't see you because I don't know how good the visibility is going to be with that thing to see everything. I picked up a new ski mask to wear underneath it so you don't see my face. I'll be testing that out at the bank before I test it out at Comic-Con. I'm kidding. It's a joke. But yeah, I'll be testing that out tomorrow and then we'll see how the visibility is. But yeah, if you see me at Comic-Con walking around, come say hi. Wouldn't mind taking a photo. Always happy to. Again, I might stop by on Sunday. That's iffy. If I am going to stop by on Sunday, I will probably be dressing up in my lantern costume. But definitely want to show this boy off for Toronto Comic Con because of that Marvel meetup. And I think they might be doing something on May 4th for Star Wars in London, and I might be building something for that too. So keep an eye on my social media for the next little while. We might be talking about that because now this will be done. I'm jumping headfirst into the next one. So that is all of the news. And now we are on to the sponsor section of the show. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're just jumping in, this means a lot to me. Or if you're watching this post live stream, thanks for watching. Hope you guys are enjoying the video. This is number 4, and I got a bunch of ideas for the next little bunch. As you probably are aware, we got 90s month going on right now. Next week, we'll be talking about 90s wrestling, and the week after that, we're going to be talking about 90s video games. So we got some more 90s content coming up because I am a child of the 90s, and that's what I know, so that's what I'm going to talk about. But let's jump into the sponsors. As you're all well aware, sponsors are... they pay, but not in the way you think. They pay with how much they care about this podcast and care about me as a person. So, as always, and they will always have top billing, the sponsor for this podcast is always my wife. She is everything to me. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't for her. She is the one who gives me the guts to do this in front of everybody and not feel worried about anybody's opinion. So, hun, I love you. Thank you very much. And our second sponsor tonight, usually I have something. You know what? I didn't have anything, but just popped into my head. There's a group of people who are really important to me. They've been in my life for a very long time. And, there was definitely a time in my life where I was, I don't know. It's hard to explain. They were during the pandemic. We had a lot of, uncertainty. And there was a lot of time where we were not sure what was going to happen and what was, I don't know. There was a lot of unknown. That's the best way to say it. And somebody, I can't remember who exactly it was, said, let's jump on to a Zoom call and let's just check in on how we were doing. I think we were supposed to have a convention coming up, and we just said, let's jump into a Zoom and see how we're doing. And we did. And that became sort of a running thing for the next little while. There was probably one every couple weeks where we just jumped on and talked and saw how each other was doing and checked in on each other. And that meant a ton to me. And I think it meant a ton to the rest of them as well, because it was a little bit of venting, a little bit of therapy, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But without that, I wouldn't be as close as I am with them as I am now. So to the con fam, who are all the people I volunteer with when I work conventions, thank you for everything. Thank you for always being there. Thank you for always having a shoulder to lay my head on if I need it. Wouldn't be here without you guys either. So you guys are the sponsors for tonight. And now we come to the sad part of the show. The thanks to the memories. It's not sad. I shouldn't say it's sad. It's tributes to people who have impacted our lives. And we only have two tonight. Actually, well, we have one, but we actually missed one last week. But it was actually kind of okay that we missed it because it actually works better in this episode. On March 5th, we lost Gary Rosington. And if you don't know who Gary Rosington is the guitarist for Leonard Skinner. More importantly, he is was the last living member of Leonard Skinner. Unfortunately, we've now lost all of that great band. And he was an incredible guitar player and for an incredible band. And I know a lot of them I'm not the biggest Leonard Skinner fan, but I have a couple of their discography and they're great. And everyone knows them for wow, I can't believe I'm blanking. Freebird. There we go. You know them so well from Freebird, but they've got so many good songs and they were like the Eagles to me. I saw them and went, they have a couple good songs. Why does everybody love them? And then I saw them live. Well, I didn't see them live, but I saw a video of them live. And I saw a lot of their other songs and went, you know what? I get it. I get why people like it. And Freebird is sort of the pop culture one that everyone knows, but they have a lot of great hits. So Gary Rosington passed away and he was 71 and he will be missed. And, it was a great band and they will still live on without all their original members probably. So Gary, you will be missed. And secondly, we lost a few days ago, I want to say 4 or 5, and that is Haim Topol. And you probably don't know the name, but you know where he's from and you know the song. I actually know him as Dr. Hans Zarko in Flash Gordon, because that was a fun movie. And when I saw what people know him from, I kind of was like, is that who I think it is? And I sort of did the backwards to it. I did the reverse of what normal people would do. And he was also Columbo in the James Bond movie For Your Eyes Only. But as you all probably will go, I can't believe this is him. He was Tavi, I believe is his name. Tavi in Fiddler on the Roof, sorry. And he was the one who is in all the memes and the voice in the memes for If I Were a Rich Man. That is Haim Topol, and he passed away at 87. He had a huge career on screen and stage, and he will. I think this is a weird thing, and this is kind of going to go off kilter or off page, but I think that's going to be the pop culture version of how people will be remembered is because of a meme. I think that's the way that this generation is going to take the people that they care about if they pass away, and you will remember them through memes and you'll remember them through funny little videos that people put out that may have an audio ripped from something that you care about or a picture or something that you may not even think of who it is, but that will be the tribute that this generation will leave for their celebrities going forward. So to both of you, Gary and Haim, you will be missed. Thank you for the memories. Okay, we are running through this show. Man, the last couple shows have been like an hour long. I think I might get this done before 45 minutes, which, hey, that just means more time for you guys to kick back and enjoy your Monday night. So let's get into the main event. All right, 90s music. That is a very, very broad category. This is a category that could go 100 different ways. So we're going to focus on a couple key things. And if we got to come back later on to do another round of this, I have no problem talking about 90s music. So when you think of 90s music, what is the first thing you think of? Nirvana. And I think a lot of people, I think a lot of bands in the 80s hear that opening Smells Like Teen Spirit riff, that ding 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 ding. I think it sort of wakes them up in a cold sweat at this point because there are so many bands that I'm a big 80s hair metal fan, but I completely understand the fear when they hear that album or that riff go off and just go, "Oh no, we're in trouble." Because that is the sound of it's the sound of angst, it's the sound of anger, it's the sound of just I want to break stuff for that generation. And the hair metal movement was so big and so glam and money and fame. And this was a bunch of kids from the streets, let's say, just coming up and kicking them in the face. And I could see the fear just pouring over them, going, "Yeah, we're done." Because it wasn't long after Nirvana came out that they just that hair metal band just went away, and they tried. I will give them credit. I like I said, as a hair metal fan, I have a lot of their 90s music in my discography. So you've got, Motley Crue trying the industrial side with the Generation Swine. You've got Poison trying more of a country feel with, I think it was the Bastard Son of a Thousand Blues. It worked a little bit. I mean, I personally don't mind it because as much as their hits are hits for a reason, I overhear a song too much and then I don't want to hear it anymore. And I like listening to more deep cuts because I just don't hear them that much. So hearing those odd songs and those odd albums are actually good for me. But, the idea of that coming out, and then not even just Nirvana, you've got Alice in Chains, you've got Stone Temple Pilots, you've got Soundgarden, you've got all these grunge bands coming out at the same time from that Seattle movement and just going, "This is our world now," and just took over. And as big as Nirvana is, and as big as Nirvana was back then, I wasn't a big fan. I know it's hard to believe, but I am not the biggest Nirvana fan. I appreciate them. I am a bigger Alice in Chains and Soundgarden fan, but yeah, that Nirvana thing just wasn't for me. I appreciate it. It was so I didn't care so much that I was actually gifted the best of Nirvana. It's the black cover one. I think it was in the 2000s. I was gifted that from a relative, and because they knew I was getting into, different types of music. This was when I was into Metallica and getting into more of the metal scene. And I got the album and I put it in and I just didn't care. I didn't care at all. I was listening to this going, Smells Like Teen Spirit, everyone knew, but then you had Come As You Are, and I'm just like, this isn't for me. And I actually gave it away. I gave it away without really giving it a second listen. And I look back and I go, I just gave away, the album of a generation almost. And I just didn't care. And I appreciate them now, but at that point, I just was not a Nirvana fan, and I was more leaning into that metal fandom. But yeah, that 90s wave, that early 90s, you can even see it in the fashion. Like once the Nirvana movement and the grunge movement came out, the bold colors of the 80s just went away and everything was washed out. Everything was ripped jeans and band shirts, and it was going through it as a kid, you don't notice it because I was probably, let's say 91, I was probably 4 or 5. Didn't really see it as much, but if you were a teenager at that point, you had to probably just rip your fashion completely and just throw it out the next day because that was just it must have hit like that even for fans. Like one day you see a bunch of people walking down the street with these bright colors and big hair, and then the next day you're just ripped jeans and flannel shirts wrapped around your waist, which I still wear, by the way. So that's something I'll never give up. I appreciate having a hoodie or a long sleeve wrapped around my waist. But Yeah, that must have been completely insane to just see an entire generation just switch overnight, because it feels like it must have been overnight. I I can't see it being any other way. Like, you hear that song as a youth who is probably frustrated with the world and just go, I was caring about, you know, Don't Need Nothing But a Good Time by Poison, and then go, nope, we're going this way. And then with that, you run into the industrial movement with Nine Inch Nails and all these bands that were just completely opposite of what you had before. But you also had growth in other genres, which is one of the things that I always loved about the 90s. I mean, the 80s had the pop world, and they had the hair metal world, and they had a couple other little subgenres. But it seemed like from 1990 to 1999, it was like a peak every year, but a different genre. Like, if you say 90's, there is no real full genre that took over the entire decade. Nirvana took over the early bit, and they were successful along with the rest of the grunge movement. But you had Garth Brooks did well. You had NWA did well. You had Aerosmith with a big comeback. You had the boy bands. You had the girl bands. Like, that was a time in the world where, the we'll talk about this a little later, tape CD movement was happening, where you could go to a store and pick up the latest album in your hand. And the the idea that that was probably the last real decade that had the physical media of going to a store and buying it, and it had every I can't think of a genre that didn't do well in the 90's. I mean, you even had the 90's dance craze. You had the swing craze. You had, like, everything did well in the 90's, and it was probably the last year that everything did well. I mean, now, be with the internet age, you can put on basically anything you want, and it'll do, you kind of can make your own playlist. I really don't follow any of the top, 20 songs, top 100 songs, whatever you want to call it, because you can kind of just make up what you want. The idea of a terrestrial radio station being where you get the cool music, or an MTV being the place where you get the cool music, it's gone now with the age of the internet. You can kind of just play whatever you feel like. I could jump from like a 19 whatever Elvis song to, Drake if I wanted to, because that's how easy it is to get music. But the idea of that generation, or that decade, being the last decade of physical media, and it just being a decade that every genre did well. I mean, even the metal scene, like, without the 90's, we wouldn't have had Pantera. We wouldn't have had, Judas Priest make a comeback. We wouldn't have a lot of great music. So, overall, that was a hell of a decade to be a part of, and to see everybody do well, especially even in live concerts. Like, I think Garth Brooks had like the biggest selling tour of the decade, and that was country. And, you had the line dancing craze. So, you had every genre doing well. And we capped the decade off with the boy band, girl band craze, which I appreciate, and I'm still a fan of some of the music, because that was the sound of my youth. Like, you had the Backstreet Boys, you had the Spice Girls, you had NSYNC, and then you had all the derivatives of it. If you had S Club and O Town and everything else, but you had these bands coming up that, it was even, I'll even say a Britney to a point, or a Christina. But you had it was such an interesting time, because you had such great bands doing so well, and great artists. But then you had, at the time, I don't think they do it now, but the lip sync crowd came in, and they ended the decade with a bang. Like, Backstreet Boys being on MTV and Much Music, and then you had the Spice Girls exploding, which Spice Girls all over the place, a movie, and they only had, this is the crazy part, the Spice Girls had a movie. I think they had 3 sold out tours back to back to back, and they only made 2 real albums with the 5 of them. The 3rd one only had 4. Jerry had left by the 3rd album. I think that wasn't until 2000 by that point. But they were the biggest band in the one of the biggest bands in the world, and they only had 2 albums. I mean, they're good albums. I have no problem with Spice and Spice World. They're great albums when it comes to that, but it's crazy to think that that's how big they exploded, and it was done just that quick. It's crazy to think about. And then you've got NSYNC and you've got S Club and all these other ones that were doing so well. And then once you jump into the 2000s, then you had the reality show bands coming out, and yeah, like it was crazy to see that genre at the end of the decade take over. And like I said, I even as a metal fan, even as a Metallica fan, metal fan, heart, like I'm that guy. I will fully admit I don't mind putting on a Backstreet Boys or an Aqua or a Spice Girls every once in a while, because it was I I don't understand the idea of what's the term, guilty pleasure. I don't understand the point of a guilty pleasure. If you enjoyed something as a kid, you should be able to enjoy it now. Like if if you don't like it now, that's one thing. But if you like something growing up and then you said, it's not for me, but then you went, oh, but it's got that nostalgia to it, you should be able to embrace it. That's when anyone asks me, what's your guilty pleasure? I'm not guilty of anything that I like. I enjoy putting on Aqua every now and then. I could probably sing the entire Aqua album word for word. I could probably sing Spice Girls word for word as well. I Emma was my favorite Spice Girl. Um, I don't have a problem with that, and I don't see the problem with people enjoying what they enjoy. Hence why I do this podcast, because this is what I enjoy doing, and I like talking about things I enjoy. So I never understood that idea of a guilty pleasure. If you like something, you like it. Just be happy with it and enjoy it. Because bet you there's about 50 people out there who like the same thing and they're just too shy to say it. So if you stand up and say, hey, I do like this, you might empower a bunch of people to do it as well. So that's my 2 cents. But now we're going into, oh, we got a comment, not to mention number one hit. Oh, thank you. Number one hit one. Yes, Chumbawamba Tump Thumpin', Blur Song 2, Marcy Playground, Sex and Candy. Yes, they are still incredible. I totally admit the one hit wonder genre, and that kind of goes into what I mentioned before about the swing big band movement that was going on with what was their name? Was Zoot Suit Riot and stuff like that. Like the one hit wonders, the 80s and 90s had so many good one hit wonders. It might be my age, but once you hit the 2000s, those one hit wonders kind of died to me. Like there wasn't many that kind of stood out, but it also might, again, it might have been my age. So, to each his own. But where was I? It took me off. Thank you, Dave, for throwing me off a little bit. That's the fun of the chat. It just kind of takes me off course a little bit. But as I mentioned before, we're gonna wrap this up in a second. But the last thing, the idea of tapes going to CDs is still something that is lodged in my brain as a WTF moment, because I grew up, like I said, late 80s, early 90s, where I had cassettes, and that was my collection, and I loved them. You had to listen to the whole thing. You could fast forward, but you couldn't like track skip. But my mom had a Sony Walkman, and when I found out that this is a tape player that you can put a tape in and it's only about this big and you can take it with you, dude, that was a game changer. You can take this music wherever you want. You could take it on car rides. So if we go to a restaurant and my mom and her boyfriend are talking in the front seat and I don't care, I can put in headphones and listen to my music on my terms and just enjoy it. That's insane to think about as a kid. Because any other time, I had to go up to this big tower that was taller, about 3 sizes as tall as I was at the time, that had, a CD player, one of the early CD players, a record player, cassette player, all these album, mixer. I didn't understand all that stuff, but I can bring this little box that's the size of like a tissue box. I can take that with me and put my music on and enjoy it. Whoa, like that was insane. But then when CDs came out, and my mom was very particular with the CDs, I got the cassettes because the CDs were the new thing. I got a Walkman from my mom as a gift because she saw how much the CD Walkman, not the cassette Walkman. And she said, "This is for you. We're going to start buying you CDs." Back up. So, this is a funny story actually that I just popped into my head. So, I wanted a CD player for a very long time. And I had told both my mom and dad I wanted a CD player. I want one. I want one. I want one. I need this cool invention called a CD player that I could have for my room. I wanted my own stereo for my room. And my dad went out and bought me a CD player. And and I got it for Christmas, and it's all wrapped up. I knew exactly what it was just from the shape of it. And I rip it open, and I'm so excited. It's a CD player, and it's got 2 detachable speakers, which was just like, it's not just a boombox. It's a full, like, I can put speakers in different areas of I could get longer cable and put them in like corners of my room. This was so cool as a kid. My dad goes, "All right, I got you 2 CDs. I got you one for you, and I got you one for your mom." And I kind of looked at him like, "Wait, what do you buy for mom?" He said, "No, no. I bought you this one because I know you want it. And I bought this one for you, mostly for your mom, so she doesn't have to listen to the same CD over and over and over again." And what it was I got Backstreet Boys, Backstreet's Back for me, and the best of John Mellencamp for mom. And you know what? As a second album, it ain't a bad choice because the best of John Mellencamp actually ain't a bad CD, but I have to laugh at it because that John Mellencamp at the time went, "That's nice, Dad. Phew, bye. Backstreet's Back. All right." Over and over and over and over again. And I bet you mom wanted to, tear it up very quickly after hearing it probably 50,000 times a day. But back to the original story. When I received that Walkman, that CD Walkman for the first time, it was like, "Oh, now we're gonna make this even cooler because now instead of bringing 15 of these cassettes that, get to a certain height and you don't really want to carry them anymore, I'm going to get you this Walkman and a CD pouch where you can put CDs in, and you could bring like 20 CDs with you and they barely make a dent in any size." It was insane to think like, I can track skip with this. Like, instead of hitting that fast forward button and undershooting the song and then fast forwarding and overshooting the song and then rewinding it and missing and then 20 minutes of back and forth trying to hit the beginning of the track, you just had to press a button and it went. But there was a problem. That first CD Walkman I got did not have the anti-skip technology in it. So if you're walking with it and you have a pretty heavy step, it was vibrating, and that the song didn't come out as clear as you wanted. There may have been a skip or two because it just didn't have the technology. They were sending these things out so much they weren't thinking of what was going to happen to them. It was almost like having a mini record player in your pocket. But then the second one I received, that one did have the anti-skip technology, and that was so cool to just know I could run around and do backflips and everything else, and I wouldn't have to worry about a track skip. Like, that was the the idea as a kid going from one technology to another is just I I will never understand how anybody these days is upset with any technology change. Like you're going from, an iPod to an iPhone and like everything is right. This isn't an iPhone, but everything in your universe is right here. Like that's anybody that complains about that, I just don't understand. I will never understand anybody ever having a problem with that. It's mind-blowing to me and is such a cool thing. But yeah, overall, the 90s was a heck of a decade to be a part of because like I said, you had so many things that year by year something changed. You had the grunge movement kick off the decade by kicking the hair metal guys in the nuts. You had, like I said, every growth of every genre and then genres that just popped up that you would never have thought have done well. Like I don't think anybody in the 80s was going to think that Aerosmith was going to be one of the biggest bands of the 90s. I think they saw the grunge movement and went, well, they're going to fall victim to it as well. You write a song for a movie called Armageddon, you're going to get yourself a number one hit and you're going to get back in the talk of being one of the best bands in the world. So good on them. Then you got the girl band, boy band, pop genres coming out at the end, and then the whole technology change. And now it's kind of going back. I couldn't believe that when I read the article. People are buying cassettes again. Like we had the vinyl craze probably a decade ago, which I completely understand because turntables were big and people were wanting that. But I was like, cassettes? Like CDs I can get, but cassettes? Like really? I guess it's that nostalgia bug coming back and biting people because I'm glad I kept all mine and I have almost all my cassettes. I did get rid of some because I was at that age where I had to get rid of stuff every now and then. But CDs, ooh, when those CDs come back around and people start collecting those, woohoo, I'm gonna make bank because I've got so many of my CDs still. I probably have all of them with cases, with art books. So if those can come around sometime in the next decade where I can, people are looking for those at really high prices, the original versions of all these things could be pretty profitable. So that was the 90s. It was a great time to be alive. Even though I remember a little bit of it because I was, under 10 for most of it, but it was still pretty cool. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. That was the main event. This has been fun. This is kind of a shorter episode. Usually we're going about an hour, but we're gonna probably get this done in about 45 minutes. So thank you guys. Please share this if you can. Just hit that share button. You don't have to share it with anybody if you don't know anybody. I completely understand. If you hit that share button, this old thing called an algorithm thinks that you might be interested. You might be sending these to some of your friends. So give it a like, give it a share, give it a comment. Greatly appreciate everybody watching this. Last thing tonight, we're gonna go through quick 3 Q&A questions that we received this week. Let's start out with the first one. What are my top 3 90s bands? Now, this is tough because, like I said, there's such a wide pool to pick through because I was such a young kid, but I was also growing my musical taste and I was enjoying kind of a little bit everything. And then even older me started to pull in some of the nostalgia from the 90s. So there's some songs from there too. I'm gonna try and keep this one genre, one band. I'm not gonna pick all the same genre. Best 90s band. I gotta put Pantera at the top, number one, because as a metal fan, they're amazing. They are absolutely amazing when it comes to that guttural riff and watching things like, Domination and such, live in Russia with like 100,000 billion people in the crowd and just seeing them all go nuts. They're an incredible band, and I gotta put Pantera as number one. Number two, best band. You know what? Again, going back to not being shameful, I'm a big Aqua fan. I gotta put Aqua as number two. Aqua was a band that that first album came out and it was just a meteoric rise for them. And even their second album, I don't think that second album gets the credit it deserves. It isn't the first one, but the first one was the first one. Aquarium was great, but Aquarius was just as oh, and you know what? I shouldn't say just as good. It was a good album for a second album. And I know it wasn't what everybody wanted. It didn't have all the hits. It also didn't get the radio play because that genre was starting to drop. But Aqua is still an amazing band. I've seen clips of them live, and it would be cool to go see them live, especially being the metalhead. I think it would be pretty funny to go see them. Number 3. Number 3. 90s band. What would be a good 90s band? You know what? I'll go back to what I said earlier. Alice in Chains was probably my favorite grunge band. As much as Nirvana changed the game when it came to the style, I love Alice in Chains, and I love Alice in Chains, even their new singer after the loss of Lane Staley. That there, I could put on almost any Alice in Chains song and just sort of enjoy it and not almost it's almost the way Tool is to me. Like Tool I can put on, and Tool I've never smoked marijuana in my life. But if I was, I would have to listen to Tool because that just seems like the type of music that would just relax me, and it does. And I think Alice in Chains, to a degree, has that same effect on me, where it's a little more aggressive, but it's still a hell of a good sound. And Jerry Cantrell is an amazing guitar player, so I can't say anything bad about them. I love Alice in Chains. So Pantera, Aqua, Alice in Chains. I bet none of you ever thought you'd hear those three those three bands together in the same sentence, but those are my top 3. Let's pop over to number 2. Oh, Desert Island, and you only had 3 CDs. What would they be? I hate this question. Okay, Desert Island, and you only have 3 CDs, and they can be any CD from any year. 3 CDs. Now, as a giant Metallica fan, a lot of people probably think I'd say the Black Album. But unfortunately, I'm not going to say the Black Album because that's such an overplayed album. I love it, but it's just overplayed. My first love when it comes to music was Kiss. And as much as I love the classic Kiss, and that will always be, the Makeup Days were the greatest. Alive 3 is if not my favorite album, because it's them at their rawest, and it is an amazing, the audio mixing on it's incredible. Yes, we're all aware that that was not actually a full live performance. They did go over it again and tweak things. Whatever. Sounds good. That's what matters. Yeah, so Alive 3 is number 1. Oh, also, for anybody who doesn't know, Kiss made a grunge album. It's called Carnival of Souls. Go check it out on YouTube. It's weird, but a good weird. Like, I've had friends over and I've played tracks to them and said, guess the artist. And no one could tell who it is. It's a cool album, but yeah, Kiss did grunge. That's when anyone makes fun. So many Kiss fans out there are like, yeah, Kiss did a disco song. I Was Made for Loving You. And I'm like, yeah, Kiss did a grunge album. So one or the other, they did a full album that way. So yeah, Alive 3 would be the first. Number 2. And I think it'd be a cheat. Well, I guess Alive 3 is sort of a greatest hits, but not really. It's a live performance. I like live performance albums. I don't know about you guys, but live performance albums, it just brings another bit of energy to the recordings. So I would say that. I would also say I'm going to do another live album, and that would be Metallica Symphony, S&M 1 or S&M 2? S&M 1. Symphony of Metallica number 1 was was it was crazy to think about the idea. This was before I think they were one of the first that took the idea of doing a metal symphony combination because the idea of putting those together is such an odd idea, but once you hear it, it's incredible. So I got to go with Symphony and Metallica, and I need something a little more chill. What can I use for a chill album that something I can kick back and relax? I got to go with Tool. I got to go with Tool's new album. I think that would be my third album. That new Tool album, I can't think of the name of it. Numa's on it. It's a great album, and I think that would be a very good, relaxing album that I could just kick back because I am on a desert island, and if I can't get a boat, I might as well kick back and enjoy some music. So, kick back on a beach with Tool. Yeah. So, Alive 3, Symphony Metallica, and Tool. I like it. And then the last question, let me see. Where is it? There it is. How do you stay positive even when you get negative comments on social media? I saw some people making fun. Yeah, okay. I know where this is going. It's a longer question, but I know what the point is. How do I stay positive even when I get negative comments on social media? So for those who don't know, there was a small video I made that went, I don't know if you call it viral. It was viral when it came to my account in that over 1 million people have seen it, which is incredible to me that a video I shot right in the room over there in about 10 minutes, 1 million people have seen. I don't understand how that works, but great. I love it. It got me a lot of social media attention, and I greatly appreciate everybody who liked it. But there have been some negatives. The video was talking about how I'm a nerd and how I'm a fan of many different genres and many different nerddom um, nerddom type things, wrestling, hockey, comics, etc. Um, how do I stay positive even when I get negative comments? You just feel bad for them. Really. Like that's if you look at any of the negative comments that come in, I always comment on them. I always send them a reply because, that's what you do. If someone's willing to take the time to comment on a post, you say something back positive. I'm not a person who wants to breed more negative because what's that going to do? It's just going to end up in a fight. And I got better stuff to do than fight. Um, I realize that the person putting the comment up is probably somebody who's not in a great place, probably somebody who's dealing with something at the time. And this is probably their outlet of trying to get away from that problem and finding something online that is trying to be an escape, and it's frustrating them because what they're seeing isn't what they like. So I usually comment with something like, "Hey, I'm sorry you didn't like the video. Um, I this is the reason why I posted the video." I usually give a reason. For that one, it was, I know people out in this world who have interests in many different genres and many different random things, and sometimes they get made fun of, and sometimes they're told, they're stupid for liking things. And this was to show that it's okay. And, like what you like, dig what you dig. That's why I'm doing this podcast, is just I'm talking about the things I enjoy. And I hope they find something on social media that they enjoy. I hope something else pops up that they actually can enjoy and give a positive comment. And usually at the end, I say, I hope you're doing well because I got a good feeling they're not. And most of them don't say anything else. There's been a couple that have commented further and said, sorry, I was having a bad day. Now I see it from a different light. And that's all you can do. Like anytime anybody posts something negative, it's probably coming from a place where they're already negative, and there's nothing you can say. If you try and start a fight, you're just going to get into a fight. If you post anything negative, you're just going to start something, and it's not worth it. Just try and stay positive and understand that they're probably in a bad place, and you just need to look at it from a different point of view. Because if you look at it from just being, oh, well, they commented something mean, you're not really helping the problem. You're just kind of breeding into it. And you're getting, you know what? You're giving into what they want. They want to fight and they want to release some of that anger. Don't kill them with kindness. That's what I try and do. But ladies and gentlemen, we are at the 54-minute, almost 55-minute mark. I didn't think we'd go for almost a full hour, but here we are, 54, 55 minutes in. Thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. I know there are many things you could be doing on your Monday night, but thank you guys for spending some time with me. Next week, brother, we are going to be talking about 90s wrestling. 90s wrestling was incredible. I grew up a 90s wrestling fan. I started in 97, but as a giant wrestling fan, I have watched tons of stuff from before that. So we will talk about all things 90s wrestling next week. We will be talking about WWF versus WCW. We're going to be talking about the birth of ECW. We're going to be talking about the Attitude Era and how big and popular and how everybody still wants it, even though you probably don't. So wait for that next week, Monday. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. I am Myers Corp Creation. And what you gonna do, brother, when Myers Corp Creation and Monday Night Nerd run wild on you? See you guys next week.